you
for
have
people.
policy brainstorming, that sort of thing. Is that then more of a dialectical thing where you can have very different views and about an issue and go through the policy process instead of getting a circle of people and saying, right, this is what we want to do, this is how we're going to do it, everyone nod now.
Yes, absolutely. So I think it's we obviously have some core policies that are combined. So as Internet Mana, we have certain policy manifestos. So we've got things like sharing our wealth, which is about, feeding the kids, free tertiary education, building new state homes, introducing new taxes like a financial transaction tax, capital gains tax, a wealth tax, having a responsive government that listens to its citizens and doing policy making from the micro level rather than the macro level. So going, hey people, hey New Zealand, this is an issue, what do you think? And putting it out there in forums where everybody can discuss before the policy is drawn up to get a real representation of what New Zealand people might want. Then we want, Internet Mana wants to emphasise a hope for the future, so people's right to work, people's right to earn a living wage, so increasing that from 1425 to 1880, and working toward developing our digital economy and innovation, having cheaper universal internet and 100% renewable energy by 2025, and also trying and seeking carbon neutrality by 2050. And the last sort of manifesto of Internet Mana is a free and independent nation where the Treaty of Waitangi is taken seriously, the Maori language is taught in schools, the Five Eyes Agreement where we can, the spy network between the US, UK, Australia and Canada, we won't participate in. We can put an end in mass surveillance of New Zealand citizens. And
so there's no value in us being in the Five Eyes at all?
We don't think so. We think it compromises our sovereignty and it compromises the rights of the citizens and residents that we have. It makes it impossible for us to be a truly independent nation, and New Zealand has a history of standing up and speaking out against social injustices. Springbok Tour, the Rainbow Warrior. We're a country that doesn't go along with the big guns, the big dog, and I think we're going to lose that. We're going to lose that sovereignty, autonomousness, and independence if we're a part of that sort of system. Especially with much bigger, much richer, much more powerful nations. And I think related to that, we would not support the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement. It's been negotiated in secret, and it threatens to undermine our independence, democracy, and sovereignty again. It's just, it ties into that broader neoliberal free trade stuff that we think is actually not working globally, if you think about it. All the the global financial crisis, all the things that have been happening is showing us that neoliberal, the capitalist economy, neoliberal approach is damaging and it's not sustainable for the future. We need to think of different ways of doing things.
Right, but even if people disagree with you and say, no, free trade is good.
Yeah.
I suppose
trade is good.
The answer would still be, well, it's been negotiated in secret,
yes,
so in principle it cannot be right.
Yeah, trade is good, and that's absolutely it. We don't know what's happening, and it would compromise our position as a free and sovereign nation because political decisions that we were to make would be influenced by those trade agreements, those free trade agreements, and that is the problem. That is the problem, that it's coming into big corporations and other countries would have more of a say in terms of how we run our country than the people. That is the problem.
And now that you are a politician,
I never thought this would happen.
Right. So,
well, no, I mean, I obviously it was always in the back of my mind, but it was.
When did you decide?
It was hearing about Internet Party before I knew about the alliance coming in. But mind you, once I heard about the alliance, I was even more excited. The alliance between Mana. for me, a lot of my work is about social justice and equality, and particularly centered around gender issues and gender equality.
You can just say that.
Yeah, and what I've done. And so far in my career or in my work, I've worked at an academic level and at a community level. So I'm doing research to try and theorize or shift understanding about gender issues, delve into different and new arenas of gender inequality, inequality in terms of relating. And then recently I've started like a community project, working with young people, empowering them to make more positive decisions in their lives. And so this is kind of like the three-pronged approach. I'm doing the academic stuff, doing the community stuff, and now I'm trying to sort of also make a shift or a change in a political sphere, bring all that kind of knowledge, understanding and passion in terms of achieving gender equality in our nation at the governance level. So the thing that attracted me so I'd always kind of had that in the back of my mind, but I hadn't really identified with a party strongly enough yet.
Right.
I sort of felt a bit, what's the right word? I don't know, just hadn't quite got passionate about.
None spoke for you.
No, and I mean, there are obviously great things that other parties have been doing, the Greens and aspects of the Labour government, and I really enjoyed Helen Clark's leadership of our country. But I just feel like they're not going far enough, and even, the Labour government didn't go far enough. And then the Internet Party came along, and I started hearing things about it. I had a few friends that were working for them, and I just thought looked at their policies, and initially I had a similar reservations. I'm like, Kim.com's a controversial figure. I don't really know him. I know there's a lot of media hoo-ha about him all the time. I looked into it, met him, talked to the party CEO, talked to the people who worked there, looked at the policies, looked at the vision, looked at the direction, and I was absolutely on board, because I think it is, even though for people who are not familiar with it, at first it might sound, silly or not to be taken seriously, or the Kim.com being the founder and primary source of funding puts people off. I just think...
Is he pulling the strings?
Not at all, no.
So is he very much involved in the policy? Or?
He's the Kim is the founder and main source of funding. And he founded the party because of the injustices he felt he suffered when his house was raided by, dozens of guards.
It was so bizarre.
Yeah, absolutely.
They a helicopter.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah, and I think as he explains it, he lived in a rich man's bubble till he wasn't a rich man. All his assets were seized. He was separated from his wife, who was 7 months pregnant, all sorts of things. They didn't have food. They didn't have money. And he started to kind of come out of that and just wanted to do something and give back to the New Zealand community who looked after them at that time. But he said, people were bringing him food and things like that. So, he's coming from his heart's in the right place. And this is a global movement. This isn't just about New Zealand. This is about, look, things are not going well globally. Things are not going well, especially, it's just not working. And this is a movement for the people, by the people, and wanting to change how things are being run. And so he's a visionary, he's the founder, and he's the main source of funding. But the rest of the party has got a very robust structure, and it runs in a specific way. And he has some, obviously, input, but he's not in charge of things, and he does not pull the strings. Right. We have a democratically functioning party, and we also, all our policies are made in a policy incubator. So we put it out to our members, we put it out to
on
public.
Your website. Yeah.
Yep, and people respond, and that's how we make our policies. Our environmental policy, comprehensive policy just came out, and that was as a result of over 300 submissions and views on it from the public and our members.
A large section of your support base is the youth.
Yes. Yes.
Quite clearly.
Yes.
Would it surprise you if voter turnout this time was the same as 2011?
Yeah, it would surprise us. I'm really hoping that that's not the case.
Because the youth are quite hard to measure. You don't get them with standard polls, because if polls are based on landlines, what youth has a landline? We
They're
all
all
have
on
cell phones.
cell phones. Absolutely, they should be like texting them. No, exactly. I mean, we're hoping that. I really think that Internet Mana has tapped into the youth, number one. That's highly demonstrable by the gatherings we've had and all the people who are coming to our roadshows. There's such a diversity of people, but it's definitely engaging the youth. And I think, I was at Moosey yesterday, and I'm frustrated about how depoliticized our current system has made students. I don't actually blame the students necessarily. I think capitalism, a capitalist consumer economy, and no civics education in schools, and also the continued depoliticization of universities, so the removal of university student association, or the changes that have been made to university student associations. This creates an environment of political apathy. And, conservative governments don't want students to vote because students typically vote left. And so they just don't really engage them, and we don't want them to get that, they don't want them to get that involved, because they wouldn't be in government if all the students...
They can't get out and do produce because they're working, so keep them as busy.
Yeah, keep them as busy. Keep them, occupied on getting the next iPhone, going to parties, not thinking about politics. And then it's, she'll be right. But by the time they're sort of 25, 26, they're so much in debt that they'll do anything for a tax break or a tax cut,